My name is Leya, a PhD student at the UCL Interaction Centre, and I will present insights based on the results of a game jam organised to understand how games can support exploration of gender. Gender identity refers to a person's personal sense of their own gender and is considered one of the most pervasive aspects of personal and social identity. Given contemporary understandings of gender as a fluid, multidimensional construct, providing opportunities to explore this concept away from traditional norms would be beneficial for anyone. However, there are challenges to exploring and expressing diversity, such as a lack of representation, stigma and discrimination which impact mental health, and barriers to accessing support. Technology has transformed the landscape in which identity exploration takes place, and in the wake of these challenges, may offer other opportunities for people to gain knowledge about themselves and explore their identity safely. Thinking about the intersection of gender and gaming, there has been a focus on specific aspects such as representation in the narrative, which can showcase diverse identities and experiences, or on particular genres such as role-playing games, which are well positioned for exploring gender through embodying characters in a situated context. Game designers are not necessarily thinking about exploration explicitly as a goal. It just so happens that this medium is uniquely suited for such a process. There is so much potential here. Games can encourage reflection and exploration as a core outcome of design, especially tapping into narrative, multisensory, and social aspects. This motivates the following question: how can games support exploration of and reflection on gender identity? To explore this, we invited participants with an interest in or experience in exploring gender through games, regardless of their identity, to take part in a game jam, an event in which people of all abilities can come together to ideate and develop a game prototype in a short time frame. Game jams lend themselves well as a model for research through design, and are a compelling, playful way to approach our research question. This involved 4 stages. During the preparation stage, we established several key elements: a design workbook and mirror board containing sub-themes and game design exercises intended to probe reflection on the topic of gender identity, a code of conduct establishing expectations during the jam, appointing a group of moderators and mentors with previous game development experience, a Discord server as the primary communication environment for the group, and a web page with event details and the sign-up form. The actual event took place over 3 weeks in September 2021. Upon joining the Discord channel, participants were provided the design prompts to assist ideation and could form teams unless they preferred to work alone. They submitted their games by the end of this period and provided short reflections during an exit survey. We played through each game multiple times to become familiarized with the game and understand the initial player experience, and to conduct a content analysis to understand systematically what different game elements were present and how they related to the theme of the jam. This assisted in creating tailored interview guides for each game for follow-up interviews with 8 of the developers. This included asking about the general experience of the jam, a think aloud in which they played through their game whilst describing different game design decisions, thoughts on other jam games, and general thoughts on exploring gender through games. 8 games were submitted to the game jam, which I will now briefly describe. Reinvent is a 2D platformer where the player is trying to escape a factory, manufacturing pink and blue brained robots. You Choose is an RPG set in a fantasy world inhabited by different monsters who are expected to choose and conform to a specific role. Guilt Oil Alter is a twine game with a cyberpunk atmosphere in which you play a shapeshifter tasked to protect a client in one last job. I Am Me focuses on the design of character creation screens and how others interact with you. 3 Quiz and a Question Mark presents a simulated chat room in which the main character is figuring out their own identity, and the player can choose different conversation paths to learn about different aspects of gender and queer identity. Norms is a customizable platformer in which you can set the rules of the level and explore how this affects the gameplay. Euphoria is a bingo-style card game in which each player creates a chart with different characters that make them feel gender envy, or admiration for how someone expresses their gender, and you must guess who is on the other player's chart. Finally, Hallow Unseen is a tabletop role-playing game in which every player role-plays as a cryptid at a Halloween party, whose identity may evolve and become more visible over time, depending on the gameplay. The analysis of interviews led to 4 themes. The player perspective: why games and play are good tools for exploring gender and identity. First, play can act as a gateway to exploration, providing a natural way to explore different aspects such as roles, expression, and identifiers, including names and pronouns, in a situated context. Play can support reframing experience, helping players to process potentially challenging experiences and feelings about one's identity and gain control over this. Finally, play can be a communicative tool, acting as a shared language to easily communicate experiences and feelings about one's identity to others. Next, we focus on specific elements of games and play that facilitate exploration and reflection. Several game elements were discussed, but the most prevalent was character creation. Participants lauded how this is becoming more inclusive in mainstream games such as The Sims and Dungeon Daddies, allowing people to represent themselves authentically. Many games, however, have simplistic character creation, perpetuating binary stereotypical norms. Instead, participants wanted flexible customization with more elements to explore such as pronouns, voice, and appearance that can be manipulated independently of each other. Social aspects such as how one's character is perceived by NPCs and whether interactions are affirming can also be important to exploration. Elements that affect the context of gameplay were also discussed, such as using prompts to trigger reflections on gameplay behaviors, and relatedly, being able to track gameplay over time to see how behaviors and preferences have changed. This can enable someone to, for example, reflect on how their characters have evolved or stayed the same, retrospectively supporting their sense-making of identity. Finally, whether you play alone, with close friends, or even stream to an audience on Twitch can allow for different exploratory experiences. The jammer perspective. How the process of jamming and creating games facilitates exploration. Participants described how creating their games enabled them to reflect on their personal explorations. As it was a space to explicitly think about gender, it presented an opportunity to process emotions related to one's past experiences in a safe space. Also, the gallery of games produced by the end seemed to reflect, as one participant described, parts of a path or journey of gender exploration. The games reflect each developer's understanding or stage of exploration, and reflecting on all the games as a whole sensitized players to the idea that people may have different experiences. Explicitly translating concepts around gender and identity exploration into a game during ideation itself scaffolded thinking around gender. Games acted as a lens to understand concepts more clearly. Finally, participants reflected on challenges to exploring gender through games, prompted by their own challenges in making a game, as well as general experiences playing. First, there was attention in creating an engaging game with fun gameplay, without undermining the message of the game. A concern in translating gender into a game is the risk of being simplistic by reducing such a rich component into a game element or mechanic. Some comments reflected on how gender or queer themes generally portrayed in mainstream games may lack nuance compared to indie titles, limiting opportunities for people to explore alternative, more complex narratives. Another tension brought up concerned the relationship between games and the offline world. Games can reproduce existing harms faced offline, such as gender norms and stereotypes, particularly in social contexts. However, there is also the notion of games acting as a positive, safe space to explore, almost a bubble if there is insufficient support to extend this experience in the offline environment. Relatedly, contextual factors outside of the game developer's control affect the impact of the game. Personal, social, and broader socio-cultural forces can exert a stronger influence, limiting how receptive someone may be. This study has provided insights into designing for exploration of gender and perhaps of other aspects of identity through games. Designers can utilize different game elements to enhance strategies for exploring identity. This includes leveraging gameplay characteristics inherent to different genres to engage with a theme in creative ways. Embodying pre-designed characters as well as creating your own are powerful ways to explore, but character creation could be designed to be more fluid, allowing players more control over what to customize and not arbitrarily linking characteristics together. Social aspects, such as interacting with NPCs or playing with others, can facilitate different exploratory experiences. Finally, considering the overall tone of the game to elicit various emotional responses can help to convey something relating to the theme, with the help of different sensory modalities such as music and color. Inspiration for exploratory game experiences could come from existing frameworks looking at reflective design strategies, such as designing for open-endedness and ambiguity. Lastly, involving those with lived experience and leveraging natural processes of exploration could lead to some exciting design opportunities. Finally, we reflect on designing jams intended to explore potentially sensitive and personal themes. In designing this study, we wanted to foreground flexibility for our participants by hosting a virtual asynchronous event, allowing for flexible submissions and providing design prompts in different spaces. These all allowed for exploration privately, within the team, and the wider community of the game jam. To ensure participant well-being and accessibility, researchers and organizers must consider team dynamics, especially where there may consist of varying identities and backgrounds. Creating a code of conduct will help to set expectations for the environment, as well as having moderators on hand. We encourage researchers to work with public engagement teams where possible to advise on the best way for reaching participants and ensuring accessibility to create an engaging, inclusive, and